Welcome to NFL Live. Glad you're with us. There's a lot to get into. Contract questions in Dallas. The Cowboys waiting for George Pickens to sign his franchise tag. We got the latest on what the hesitation might be. That's coming your way in just minutes. Ty Simpson and Sean McVay had a secret meeting before the draft. We'll tell you what this latest wrinkle in the Rams' plan to draft Matthew Stafford's successor tells us. Plus, the Giants bulked up their offensive and defensive lines in the draft, but Malik Neighbors had some questions. Wait until you hear how John Harbaugh reacted and what it means for the Giants going forward. Glad to have you here. We've got Kimberly Martin and J-Mac here in studio. Peter Schrager is with us as well. We've got live reports throughout the show, so let's get to it. We're going to begin with the developing story on Aaron Rodgers. A lot to get to there. Adam Schefter reporting that the Steelers placed the rare UFA tender on Aaron Rodgers, meaning that he can accept a 10% raise off last year's salary, which would pay him about $15 million this season. As another condition of the tender, Rodgers would only be able to sign with the Steelers once training camp begins. Let's explain this unsigned free agent tender a little bit more. Teams can assign it after the draft is over. Once assigned, players can still sign with other teams. If Rodgers does sign elsewhere, it could help the Steelers land a compensatory pick in next year's draft. It's going to be a good draft. If he doesn't sign with a different team by training camp, he can only sign with Pittsburgh, as we told you. So any team that wanted to acquire Rodgers after camp begins would have to make a trade for his rights. So it's a lot of gobbledygook, but basically he's going to be a Steeler, I think. Kimberly, from the Steelers' perspective, why did they decide to do this?
All right, stop me if you've heard this, but the Steelers believe that Aaron Rodgers will play for them this season. When he will get there, no one knows. But this, like you said, the two words that were very important in what Laura just said, compensatory picks. This is, look at it as an administrative maneuver. In the off chance that Rodgers does sign somewhere else, which the Steelers don't think he will, but just in case, this is almost an insurance policy to make sure that they get a compensatory pick. Keep in mind, guys, this is the same team that thought it'd be in position to draft a wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon, until they weren't able to. So now they're just covering all their bases.
Yeah, to echo Kimberly's point, my understanding is they tender him at 110% of what he got last year. So it'd be about $15 million. And any team, though, can still agree to a contract with him, but it then would count against the compensatory pick formula. So he can sign the tender at any time or negotiate a different deal. July 22nd, though, is the big one. That's the start of training camp. That's when it matters for the Steelers. It essentially tags Rodgers to the Steelers for 2026. He can either play for Pittsburgh at about $15 million, or he could try to find a new team to outbid him, but it has to be before July 22nd. Or you can just retire and call it like it is. It's very rare. I believe Marcus Golden with the Giants had one of these. I think LeGarrette Blount with the Patriots in 2017. And it's really, really rare we see it. So that's why everyone was kind of caught off guard. And why I started this with was my understanding is because this is not like a usual move. But again, to Kimberly's point, this is insurance on the rare chance he actually says, you know what? I actually want to sign with the Vikings this year. Well, at least we get something out of that.
The crazy thing of all of this is, what the heck is Aaron Rodgers thinking? I think that's the biggest part, because we see it from the Pittsburgh Steelers perspective, but I look at this for Aaron Rodgers. Who's to know that right now he hasn't signed back with Pittsburgh, because maybe he was looking in training camp to get to a better team, a contender potentially if a starting quarterback went down, and maybe he wanted to go that route. Well, that's completely over and done with now with what this tag brings to the table. I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're at a point now where they're hoping that Rodgers is going to come back, and this guarantees it once training camp starts. I can't imagine there's a team out there in that time in between that's looking to sign Aaron Rodgers. But at the end of the day, if you're the Steelers, you want to know what he's thinking and what's stopping him right now from signing back with this ball club to be able to get out there with Michael Pittman Jr., who's a new wide receiver, and be able to go to work.
I have no idea, but I think what's stopping him is his own timeline. Like, he's just like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Now, the Steelers do have Will Howard in the quarterback room. They drafted Drew Aller. If they don't have Rodgers, if we're in that world, paint a picture for what you think about Aller.
I really like Aller. You love the physical tools that he brings to the table. And while he was at Penn State, I remember calling this game. And his sophomore year, people were talking about this guy as he had the potential to be the first quarterback off the board when he entered into the NFL draft. Now, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fact that Aaron Rodgers isn't showing up right now, well, it gives you an entire offseason potentially to work with a guy like Drew Aller, with a guy like Will Howard, and see what those guys bring to the table. And it gives Mike McCarthy a chance to evaluate them. Those are reps that they could be getting with the starters, DK Metcalf out there, Michael Pittman Jr. in the company, to be able to say, hey, what can these guys bring to the table? How far along is Will Howard from a year ago? And then where can we get Drew Aller to see what he could potentially look like as a starter?
We're waiting on Aaron Rodgers' timeline. What else is new?
Yeah, sounds familiar. Aller already known to limit mistakes. He holds the 4th lowest career interception rate over the last 30 FBS seasons. You have to go back a couple years to see his best work, like J-Mac's saying, but it was there. Let's go to Dallas. We continue to wait for George Pickens to sign his franchise tag. The Cowboys expected him to sign it as of last Thursday, but our Todd Archer reported yesterday it remains unsigned. Stephen Jones said before the draft the team does not plan to do a long-term deal with the wide receiver. And the Cowboys weren't exactly focused on pass catchers in this year's draft. 5 of their first 6 picks were on defense, which they needed a lot of help on, right? The only wide receiver they drafted was in the 7th round. Pickens is coming off a career-best season, including catches, yards, and touchdowns. When you look at all that, J-Mac, from Pickens' perspective, does it make sense to sign the tag now?
It's not a lot of fun when you're at home if you're George Pickens and you hear the fact that, hey, we're not planning on signing you to a long-term deal. We want you to just sign your franchise tag and come on and play. If I'm George Pickens, I'm having my agent explore every opportunity to get a trade going, because if I'm Pickens, I want to go somewhere this offseason where I can get paid. Is there a team that's willing to give something up to get him there and then give him the contract that he earned with his play on the field a year ago? I know a lot of people are going to say to you, if I'm George Pickens, just sign the tag, go to work, and just replicate the year you had last year. That's not so easy. You think about it, the draft just passed, and a year ago we had all of these quarterbacks coming out for the draft that didn't happen. Now we're all saying, look to 2027 for that draft. You don't know what a year of football is going to bring. George Pickens has to stay healthy. Dak Prescott has to stay healthy. It's also the second year in the system that every defensive coordinator studied all offseason. So if I'm Pickens, I'm trying to get out to get the contract right now, and then my last resort is to sign that tag and go play.
It's a real paradox here because we came out of draft weekend and you can look at it in 2 different buckets. Like, the Cowboys killed the draft. They did awesome, but they did so on the defensive side of the ball because last year that was the area of need. They hired Christian Parker, who is a firebrand, 34-year-old, upbeat, high energy, first-time defensive coordinator from the Eagles. They hire him and they go, defense, and then they pick another player, then defense. 4 of their top 5 picks are defense. And speaking of sources in Dallas, like, they're doing flips. They love what they did because they got better on the defensive side of the ball. And the thought process is, we don't need to do much on offense because we were so good. But if George Pickens is not on the field, your offense is not what it was a year ago. So as I'm doing flips on First Take yesterday, giving them an A+ for their draft grades, I also have to say, well, let's see, because if they have a gaping hole at the number 2 wide receiver next year because Pickens isn't on the field, maybe they botched this draft by not addressing that position.
Guys, picture it. Combine. I'm standing on the stage talking to Brian Schottenheimer, and I say, has your new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, told you have to go defense in the draft? And he goes, yeah, he's trying to. Because we all knew defense was the issue. And you come out of draft weekend, like Peter said, and you're like, damn, the Cowboys, they did it. They improved the defense, finally. And now we have the George Pickens uncertainty, that cloud of uncertainty hanging above us, and we're wondering, the offense was the thing that you could count on. That was the unit that was going to take them to the playoffs. It was the defense that had to step up. Now you feel good about the defense. This George Pickens situation, same agent as Michael Parsons, obviously. Jerry, has talked about David Mulugheta off and on. And now you wonder, how long is this going to drag on? If you're George Pickens, why wouldn't you want your agent to shop you? If you're a Cowboys fan, you want the team to figure this out any way possible, because losing George Pickens, now you're looking at a team where you're not thinking, oh, they can go deep in the playoffs. You're like, now they're a team that can't get it right.
Earlier this week on the show, to the point that you're making about the defense being so drastically improved, Dan Orlovsky's saying, like, this could be a top 10 defense with what they've done. Is there a world where, and I'm not minimizing the importance of George Pickens, I realize he was the reason a lot of times why their offense was as good as it was, but is there a world where, like, the defense is enough better where you say the offense can meet them halfway somewhere and they are improved enough to where this team can function well without Pickens?
Yeah, I do think that is the case. I think to a certain extent, if you're Dallas and you're looking at what you did defensively with what you were able to do last year offensively, you're saying, hey, we can be Super Bowl contenders. And I think that's going to be the difference, where if you don't have a George Pickens, although the defense is going to be much improved with what they brought in, are we looking at a team that's going to be Super Bowl contenders or just playoff contenders? I think that's the big difference of what George Pickens brings to the table and how he changes things for them on the offensive side of the ball. But I agree with you guys. What they did on the defensive side of the ball has been awesome.
The rest of the division, a couple teams got better, like the Giants.
Laura,
that's true.
I would agree.
Also,
if I could just add,
go ahead.
he was relatively a saint last year and had some things, but like for the most part was on his best behavior, thinking there was a carrot at the end. I don't know about year 2 if you're disgruntled about your contract.
Well, there may just be a carrot elsewhere. I mean, listen, George Pickens, I'm not advocating for you to, like, not get paid. I'm saying go get paid somewhere else. It'd be really fun to see that trade happen. I can think of
Jerry's going to text you in 5 minutes. Like, don't
Jerry
tell him
has
that.
my number, I would be shocked. All right, we're just getting started on NFL Live. The Rams were really surprising. Details continue to emerge on the Rams' plan to draft Ty Simpson. Les Snead was on the Pat McAfee show earlier today explaining the details behind the pick, and Simpson himself was on ESPN radio when he revealed a secret meeting with Sean McVay. Listen to this.
We tried to keep this, under wraps as long as we could. It was something to where I knew they were interested, but, they wanted to, make it private and didn't want people to know that, they were interested. So I had some secret meetings with, Coach McVay, and, I just was trying to be on script and, do what, everybody told me and not to tell anybody.
Here's what doing the QB this year does for us, right? There's an element that we are able to get a possible successor, come in and hey, earn equity, be a backup. But what it does in the future is hopefully we're picking late. Let's call it that. Let's call it 27 draft, 28 draft. But when you have a QB that, right, is in the twilight of his career, a lot of times you want to save some of those early picks, right, to ensure just in case Matthew decides, I've had enough. It's coming soon. It's his timeline. He's the MVP. If he wins 2 more MVPs for 3 straight, we'll take it. But at the end of the day, when you're not sure when he might say it's over, you like to ensure some of those other picks in case you need to react versus proacting for the next QB.
All right, it makes sense, right? It's why these guys are at the top of the business. We'll get to that from Les Snead. But, Peter, let's go back to the idea of the secret meeting. What exactly went on with Simpson and the Rams?
All right, so, 2 things could be true. We could hear Les explain it, and it makes sense. It could also be said that it's a bit bizarre that Ty Simpson, the day of, said he'd never heard from the Rams and never spoke to Sean McVay. And then 2 days later, it turns out they had an entire meeting together. And there's subterfuge in this, and I don't know what to call it or what not, but the Rams don't believe in official 30 visits. You hear about them all the time. David Bailey the Jets canceled David Bailey's, and it was as if it was a cover of the New York Post. The Rams don't even do them. And I think the last one they did was 2023 when Kobe Turner wasn't even a combine invite, so they wanted to bring him in and get it all. Oh, by the way, the Rams don't go to the combine either. So the truth is, McVay and Ty Simpson had spoken. Anyone who Friday morning was like, McVay's pissed at the pick and Les Snead went rogue is an idiot, because clearly everything goes through Sean McVay at that building. There's no way they would draft a quarterback 13th overall with Sean McVay not being aware and being caught by surprise. But there's a lot to uncover here. It was communication with Stafford. They had to get in front of that. They didn't want this out there because they were worried another team might find out that they like Ty Simpson and they could manipulate the draft board. So it just goes to show you how many secrets are held close to the vest here when it comes to the draft. They didn't want anyone else knowing, so Simpson lied about it, and then he was caught in the lie, and then he revealed it, and then Les afterwards was like, yeah.
He's like, what do you want?
And it's
Ty Simpson.
not perfect. And my mom always told me just tell the truth. Like, you can't get in trouble if you tell the truth. But I guess the draft, you throw that out the window and you try to protect everyone else's secrets and you get caught in a lie sometimes.
Yeah. Ty Simpson, good as gold, by the way. Like, nicest guy, nicest family, nicest kid, whatever. Like, if we're going to judge him for lying, we really probably can't do that. He was told
to. Yes. That's
the he has to lie. He's like, I'm not going to betray Sean McVay here.
He lied so well. That's the problem.
True. Uh-oh. All right. You heard Les Snead's explanation of the pick. If you're Matthew Stafford, are you buying all that?
Man, this is such a tough one for me because I look at my own career. All right, played 13 years, but the majority of my 13, I was on some teams with some pretty bad quarterbacks. And I would have hoped for the move that the Rams made and what Les Snead did to ensure the future of the organization with a guy like Ty Simpson, getting him in the building and prepared to play for whenever Matthew Stafford decides he's done. But on the other end, I got a few years to get a crack at trying to win a Super Bowl. And as a veteran on a team, when you know your days are numbered of how many more games you're going to be able to play in, we'd be crazy to say that 13th pick couldn't have been a player that could have helped get the Rams over the top. They were right on the doorsteps in that NFC Championship game a year ago against Seattle. So to think that the 13th player, whether it was a wide receiver, whether it was a guy on the defensive side of the ball that doesn't come up with a key play in a divisional game somewhere that propels them to a Super Bowl, we're insane. So there's both sides of it. I think if I'm Stafford, you understand it, but you would have loved for that 13th pick to be somebody that could help you this upcoming season.
Let me take you inside the Rams building. They had their eye on Ty Simpson since before the college season started. Right? I think they were so worried that people would know that they were interested. They didn't even want to be mic'd up for round one. They were trying to keep it under wraps, right? But you talk about why they lost in the playoffs. They really lost because they allowed Sam Darnold to throw all over them.
Secondary.
And you think, you know what? Defensive help, maybe? Except that's why Trent McDuffie was traded for in the offseason. He's their first-round corner. He's their first-round pick. Keep in mind, they gave up pick, I think, 29 to get him in addition to some other picks, and everyone was like, oh, that's a hefty haul. That's why, because he's just that good. So from the Rams' perspective, while I agree with you, J-Mac, another player could have helped at 13. They look at it as whoever they drafted would have been a backup. We have wide receivers. We have corners. He would have been a backup in some respect. They like this kid, but this year he doesn't. You're hoping that he doesn't help you.
Yeah, and I would add that their Super Bowl odds, for whatever we make of it here, didn't go down one bit because of the selection of Simpson, and they're still the favorites to win the Super Bowl out in Vegas. So it doesn't matter really by those measures. And then secondly, the Rams are never never rest on their laurels here. And I'm not breaking any news because I don't have anything to share. I would just say if we have charted Les Snead over the course of his entire career with the Rams, he's never been gun shy about making a move. And that might be mid-season, that might be before the season, that might be something. And when you look at the landscape, you still got Deebo Samuel out there. You still got Brandon Ayuk out there. You still got Jawan Jennings out there. You have an unhappy AJ Brown or unhappy George Pickens. You have AJ Brown. Like, there are wide receivers that could be made available, and there could be other positions available. I would just trust that the Rams are not just like, oh, the draft is done. This is our roster. We're good. They're always building, and it's a fluid roster more than any other in the league.
Yeah, it just feels like there's going to be space to add one of those guys. We'll keep an eye on exactly who it is. But, Peter, I know you're not breaking any news, but I see your crumbs you're laying out there. I'll pick them up a little bit here.
Just hanging out here in Brooklyn.
Okay. Yeah, you are. We wish you were here. Over the weekend, by the way, head coach Mike Vrabel missed day 3 of the draft while dealing with family issues. Of course, New England started phase 1 of their offseason training this week, and Vrabel is back in the mix. Mike Reese covering the Patriots joining us now. Mike, how would you describe the atmosphere around the team at this point?
Well, Laura, you mentioned it, Mike Vrabel not being around the team. Elliot Wolf, their executive vice president of player personnel, had described it as business as usual on Saturday when they selected 6 of the 9 players that they took overall in the draft. Mike Vrabel, I'm told, returned to work on Monday, and today was the first time we got to hear from players about what they've observed from Vrabel behind the scenes and what they've heard from his message.
I thought he did a great job. It's been the same Braves, bringing a lot of energy in the room. Obviously he addressed it, and that's kind of all I'll say about it.
The coach coaches football, and he keeps the main thing. So I know he's dealing with personal issues, but when we're in the building, we speak football. I love Coach, and I'm going to be here to support him, and as he would be there to support me through anything. So I'm just a player, and I'm trying to do that as best as I can.
The main theme from Hunter Henry and Robert Spillane is that this is the early steps of the team trying to come together. And along those lines, Drake May is here. They're excited about him, Laura, talking about how this is his first time being in the second year of an offensive system. Rookies come in May 8th for their mini camp. The next time we're expected to hear from Mike Vrabel will be May 27th when they start their organized team activities.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. And certainly, Mike Reese, you'll be all over it, as you always are. Thanks for the great reporting out of you. We've got more coming your way here on favorite moments from the draft. And not just because we're talking about the Falcons, my hometown team. You know a little something about playing with your brother?
I do. Now, our draft day stories are completely different than those two guys. I was drafted 203rd in the draft, and the next year my brother goes out 27th. I'm still waiting for my paycheck from him because I helped get him drafted a year later. But being in the secondary with your brother, there's nothing like it. Even the moments that aren't so great. I remember being in meetings and me and Dev were involved in a double team, and Robbie Anderson ran right by us. The next day, Bill's like, aren't you guys supposed to be the two fastest guys on the team? So there's going to be some good and bad with it, but it'll be fun nonetheless.
Yeah, it's shocking that Dev hadn't paid you back for all that. Come on now.
Come on, Laura, you've met him. You know
if he's watching right now, we're calling you out, Dev. Let's go through a couple of the defensive draft picks that you really liked with their new team. What stuck out to you?
We're going to start right in Atlanta with Avion Terrell and what he brings to the table for this Falcons defense. Their coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, he is a guy that plays a style of defense that is feisty, extremely aggressive, and you have a corner out there that can match that type of tempo and that type of tone. He also has the versatility. He can be outside, he can be inside, but he goes out there and he competes with any and everybody, and I think that's the best part about it. When you watch him, he's up at the line of scrimmage, but he's also off, and he is fluent in his technique. Another guy that we talk about that has a type of versatility is Treydon Stukes. He goes to the Las Vegas Raiders out of Arizona, and he's a player that played all over their defense, starting out as an outside corner, then a nickel/safety. He has the ability to be in the deep part of the field, but also learn from guys like Jeremy Chin and Teron Johnson. This is a guy that when the ball's in the air, he absolutely attacks it. You saw his 40, a 4.3 guy. He is a missile out there on the field, so he'll be able to move around this defense and a plug-and-play type of guy that will show up and do whatever it is you take. The last guy on this list was the best DB in the entire draft, Mansour Delane, when we're talking about cornerbacks. The Chiefs knew it. They knew they lost two guys this year, including Trent McDuffie, and they had to go out and get them a guy. Now, when you watch him, he reminds me of what L'Jarius Sneed was able to do for their defense, a guy that can align outside on your best wide receiver and attempt to take him completely off of the board. When you watch him at LSU, he was standing at the line of scrimmage, physical with guys, and getting after wide receivers. Delane is going to be special in the league. Can't wait to see what he does.
Such a smart player, too. Instinctive. Yes. He did so much for that LSU defense, but I think it's going to your point, be a nice translation right to the Chiefs. He was so excited, too, when he looked at that Chiefs hat. It started to sink in a little bit. He's like, man, I'm going to a big-time team. Let's go to the Bears now. They made a splash of their own in the secondary when they drafted Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman in the first round. Chicago, of course, trying to rebuild that secondary that was mostly lost in free agency. Of note, the Bears opted not to pick a defensive lineman until the 6th round. Some wondered if they go D lineman a little bit early, a clear position of need certainly in the Windy City. Our Bears reporter Courtney Cronin joining us now. Good to see you, Courtney. And what are the Bears saying about some of those unfilled holes on the D line?
Well, they're looking towards the guys that they have on the roster already to fulfill the needs of a D-line that could not pressure the quarterback very well last year. And it's interesting because Ryan Poles, the general manager, kind of foreshadowed this was going to happen after that Dylan Thieneman pick at 25. He was asked, do you think that day 2 could be a place where you address the need along at an edge rusher? And he said, well, yes, but obviously it's going to depend on cost. It was cost prohibitive. They did try to move up in the 2nd round, but decided it would take them out of the 3rd round. But he made this comment that, yes, D-line and the secondary, everything, Mary's rush and coverage, all those things matter. But if you have good corners and you have good safeties, maybe the quarterback can hold on to the ball a little bit longer. So that should have been the Easter egg that we were all looking for to figure out what they were going to do the rest of the draft. But Ben Johnson was adamant that better coaching this year is going to get more out of the likes of Montez Sweat, who had a double-digit sack season, 2nd time in his career. But then it's Dayo Odeyingbo, who kind of remains this giant question mark. They gave him a big-time contract last year. He only played 8 games, 1 sack before his season ended due to injury. And then there's the guys on the interior, Grady Jarrett, Jervon Dexter, and trying to figure out what you can get out of Austin Booker, Shamar Turner on the edge. Barring any trade, this is the group they're rolling the dice with, and they must feel pretty confident in not spending any picks or many resources at all in free agency on an edge rusher to be able to keep the core that they have and expect better results.
Yeah.
So I think back, covering the Bears in the playoffs, I think back to all the conversations with players on offense and defense and how they would talk about how offensively, we cannot wait until the fourth quarter to score points. Defensively, we got to keep getting turnovers. Yep. And you think about those close games that they came back and won. And each week they're like, we got to be better. We got to jump out faster. And I think, you can't expect those close leads to be yours again a year from now. You know what I mean? And that's when I look at this Bears team, I am concerned because watching the Bears in the playoffs, you were thinking they got the quarterback, they got the pieces. And then you think about all the pieces that they lost. Veteran pieces on the defensive side of the ball. So the best ways, guys, sometimes to help your offense is to shore up your defense. Get after other opposing quarterbacks. Get your quarterback the ball quicker. So watching the Bears, as Courtney will do, it'll be a big story all season.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun to watch because, to your point, they relied heavily on the turnovers, and you're not going to expect that. But second year with Dennis Allen, how much can we just get better overall as a defense where now we're not relying on those turnovers? I think, to your point, Kobe Bryant in the secondary safety coming over from a Super Bowl winning team, drafting Thieneman, but then also just getting healthy in the secondary. Kyler Gordon, a versatile nickel position who can do so much for them, bring so much energy, having him fully healthy. Jalen Johnson on the outside. You also drafted Muhammad that now can compete with Tyreek Stevenson. So to your point, as a secondary guy, I love that. But if you have corners that can be up in your face, jamming wide receivers, and versatile safeties that can move around, it does force the quarterback to pat the ball in extra time to get after. So they need their defense. Yes, the turnovers are great, but let's just get a little bit better so now we're not giving up points and we don't need our offense heroics towards the end of games.
As Courtney could speak to, the few times that we had the Bears on Monday Night Football, when we would talk to Dennis Allen, he'd be like, I'm trying to create pass rush. I'm trying to do things schematically to make this group look a little bit better. And they did that, right? So some of that can carry over in a big way. But let's talk about the offensive side because the Bears did take 3 offensive players on day 2. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, if you look back to 2025, Ben Johnson's fingerprints were all over this roster. They draft Colston Loveland. They draft Luther Burden. Both of those guys become impact players immediately. Day 2, when we thought they might go edge rusher, they go Logan Jones, center of the future in the second round. They take Sam Roush, a tight end that is not going to be a starter right now, but is absolutely going to help fulfill the needs that they have. This is a team that runs so much 12 and 13 personnel. And then Xavier Thomas, a wide receiver who was a dynamic returner in college at LSU. So what are those picks? Those are picks that are helping build this roster in Ben Johnson's vision. They're not necessarily picks for right now. These are guys that they expect to be big contributors in 2027. But as Ben Johnson has clearly demonstrated here, this is his team. It's being built in his vision, but it's also a chance for them to draft players in positions that they need, but not necessarily right now when it's not as much of a necessity.
And you never know. The speed of Xavier Thomas could pop in a couple spots next season. They could say, you're going to contribute before 2027. We like it. Thanks to Courtney. Let's get some top stories in here, starting in Pittsburgh, where the Steelers placed the UFA tender rare happening in the NFL, and Aaron Rodgers. Simply put, the move would allow the Steelers to keep Rodgers' rights for the 2026 season if he does not sign with another team before camp. Essentially, an insurance policy in the Steel City. They're waiting on that decision. We don't blame them. Got to get a little insurance going here. We reported yesterday that Heisman finalist Diego Pavia would be attending the Ravens camp for a tryout. Well, things progressed today as the former Vanderbilt quarterback officially agreed to a 3-year deal in Baltimore. We should note the Ravens signed UConn quarterback Joey Fagano today as well. Now, the Eagles picked up a couple of 5th-year options this week. Both defensive tackle Jalen Carter and linebacker Nolan Smith will be sticking around in Philly through the 2027 season. Pretty good haul from the 2023 draft for Howie Roseman and company. Don't look now, they just keep doing it every year. After passing on the wide receiver position in last week's NFL draft, the Vikings bringing in free agent wideout Jawan Jennings for a visit. That, according to our Adam Schefter. Jennings, of course, caught a career-high 9 touchdown passes for the 49ers last season. I've been a little surprised he's still out there on the market. A little feisty guy, but he could make a big difference on a team. We'll see what happens there with the Vikings. Coming up next, Another wide receiver. All right, this is no shade on anybody, but when you see all those guys that were drafted ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're like, what? What in the world? So Peter, as you see him standing, look at you guys. Peter and Amon-Ra looking good. The all Amon-Ra St. Brown team. This is an idea from Peter highlighting some of the players from this year's draft who may have a little chip on their shoulder after being overlooked. Go ahead, take it away, Peter.
16 wide receivers were taken before Amon-Ra St. Brown. And let's look at some of the guys who will keep that chip on their shoulder from this draft. Number 5, Garrett Nussmeier. You heard of the Brady 6. We did a whole NFL Films documentary on it. How about the Nussmeier 9? 9 other quarterbacks taken before Garrett Nussmeier. Goes in the 7th round. Guys like Kalia Kamanis out of Rutgers, Cole Payton in North Dakota State, Baron Morton, Texas Tech. All these guys were not expected to go before Garrett Nussmeier. He falls all the way to the 249th pick. Well, he'll back up not only Patrick Mahomes, but Justin Fields and maybe Chris Oladokun as well. So Garrett Nussmeier, he's number 5. That is a massive chip that has to be on his shoulder. Number 4 is Keontae Scott. So much was made of his performance in the college football playoffs, where he was maybe the best defensive back on the field in all the games he played in. And yet, as corners and safeties were going off the board in the draft, he went through night 1, he went through night 2, fell all the way to night 3, goes into the 4th round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Keontae Scott, a fantastic college football player, falling to the 3rd day of the NFL draft. Number 3, all right, this one's kind of a lesser-known name, but Rohan Hemby. All right, Rohan Hemby was a stud for the Vegas Raiders. I'm sorry, for the Indiana Hoosiers. I'm throwing off, so it says Hemby was a stud. His teammate, Kalen Black, goes on day 2 as one of the first running backs taken by the San Francisco 49ers. But Hemby had more yards, had more carries, more touchdowns, and went undrafted from the national champions. Signs with the Las Vegas Raiders as an undrafted free agent. I assume a massive chip on his shoulder. Number 2, a little different reason, Jermod McCoy. It's a shame how this all went down. McCoy, of course, was one of the best corners in football 2 years ago, missed all of last season. They did the medicals at the Combine. What came back was not great, and he fell out of the first 2 days of the NFL draft. Fortunately, the Raiders traded up, and they got him with the first pick of day 3. But when you are what is arguably the best and most talented corner in this entire draft class, and you fall to day 3, oh yeah, you should have a chip on your shoulder. And number 1, I want to toss to the phone call that it all went down. And here is a certain prospect getting the call from a team that waited and got him with the 15th overall pick.
Hey, Ruben, this is Jason Light, GM of the Bucks.
How are you doing?
What do you do in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm a Buck, coach.
Fit right in with these guys, man. Play just like you did in college, and you'll be just fine.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, coach.
And Laura, you know it all too well. He gets selected 15th by the Buccaneers, maybe because he had short arms, maybe because other teams wanted other players, but he waited 14 picks, way later than we thought Ruben Bain would go. And there's that hat camera that you're supposed to do a whole thing and show your style. And Ruben Bain takes his hat, storms right by it, and goes right up to you on the stage at the draft because he was not there for laughter in the Chuckle Hut or doing any look at me. He was ready for business. And when Ruben Bain gets to Tampa, which he's already been there to do his press conference, you better believe he will be all business for Todd Bowles.
Yeah, I asked him, he's proven people wrong every step of the way. Like, how is he going to continue to do that at the next level? He's like, I am the best in the country. The only proper response I felt like was, we believe you. Like, I had to say we believe it. Like, I was like, I want him to know that I believe him right now. We got it. Ruben Bain cannot wait to see you at the next level. Let's get J-Mac back in here. J-Mac, you were a 6th-round pick in the 2009 draft. What would you tell these guys about being drafted maybe a little later than you wanted to be?
Everything about Ruben Bain's reaction, how mad, how angry he looked. Those guys walk into those buildings with that competitive chip on your shoulder and go to work. I remember going through the rookie symposium and Mike Tomlin told all of us, rookies, when you get there, shut the hell up. Nobody wants to hear anything from you. Listen, find a veteran that you're going to learn from and duplicate everything that they're doing. That's a tremendous list that Schrags put together.
Yeah.
And you think about it, Ruben Bain's going to have I just didn't love the fact that Schrags, he went Nussmeier to start out with, which I get it. Garrett Nussmeier be angry.
What, you thought it should be a defensive guy?
But Kaliak, man, leave the Rutgers product alone that got drafted. Don't talk about our quarterback. We didn't have much to be positive about. Leave him alone. Rutgers, man. What's wrong with this guy?
Oh,
I go
man.
deep with Mike McMahon and Brian Toll, so I'm good.
There we go. As long as you protect that. I love the list. We'll see what we did. Amon-Ra St. Brown's team. Let's see what all other team will do next with Schrags. We got more coming your way. The Giants off the first top 5 draft pick of his head coaching career. The Giants went with Arvell Reese. A pattern has emerged among recent Giants top 5 picks. The last 3 have been on defense, and all could potentially play the edge rusher position. Coach Harbaugh and his star wideout Malik Neighbors on going defense again.
I love the player. Don't get me wrong. I love the player, but just like he said, like where do you play? We just drafted somebody last year.
One thing that you'll kind of probably see as we go here, we don't get too worried about stuff. Malik wants to know how we're going to use our first round pick. I want to show him. I want to explain it to him, and the fact that he says it publicly, who cares?
All right, so Neighbors is like, wait a second, I got to clarify just a little bit here. He posts afters. First off, we have to stop overreacting. I would never intentionally take away from the biggest moment/night of Arvell's life. Very excited to see him play on the team and happy that we have another dog on the squad. I said it that way, but he probably would have too. Peter.
Dog.
Dog. That was better than what I said.
That's what I'm talking about, Laura. Let's go.
He is, honestly.
I got fired up.
Arvell Reese, he's going to be phenomenal. Peter, what did you take away from the way that Harbaugh handled that moment?
Well, Neighbors backpedaled faster than Jason did when Robbie Anderson beat him and his brother on a double team. I would say
shots fired.
This is a great moment for the Giants and the Giants fans. Kimberly was there over the weekend covering them for the draft, and there was questions as to all right, what's the new vibe going to be? Instead of this being on the back cover of the New York Post, instead of this dragging on for 2 weeks here in New York as a story and a scandal and a whole thing about, Neighbors spoke out, John Harbaugh put it to bed. Yep. And he had Joe Shane standing next to him when he put it to bed. And he said, I have an open heart. As long as Malik comes from a good place, which he did, I have no problem with this. But let's handle it a little differently. Let's be all right. And the postscript to it all, the first person to greet Arvell Reese when he got to the Giants facility was Malik Neighbors. So I think just the fact that there was some leadership and some adults in the room, that's a nice breath for Giants fans who've been waiting for that to step in the building.
The big conversation, Peter, the whole time that I was there all week in East Rutherford, sitting down with Joe Shane, talking to people within the building and outside the building about what the league expected from this union of Harbaugh and Shane. And no one on the outside knew. Internally, though, constant communication, clarity, and process. Everybody from top to bottom understood the type of players they wanted, and when there was disagreement, they got it out the way in the room. And then also sort of clarity in terms of what they want to do. I think from the outside, though, looking in, other people around the league are wondering, is this just John Harbaugh playing nice for now? And we're going to see, because I can tell you, sitting with Joe Shane, sitting in that building, everything is good. They got the players they wanted, and they feel very excited about the future. But we're going to see. It depends how they play.
That's a great point. This is the honeymoon phase.
Yep.
I would always
Everybody
say,
loves each other
whenever
now.
you got a new coach, the new system was there. Everybody was fired up. We're going to win the Super Bowl. But to your point, you look at what happened for them in the draft. What's happened for them this entire offseason? The guys they brought in, the Isaiah Likeleys, the Pat Ricards, the different guys that have been brought in that know John Harbaugh. And in the draft, getting a guy like Colton Hoods, Malachi Fields, the positions that they address, getting someone to be opposite Malik Neighbors to help Jackson Dart out, those are huge pickups. A guy like Arvell Reese, Denard Wilson, their defensive coordinator, you don't draft this guy 5th overall if you don't have an idea of how you want to use him. So they're going to be able to move him around in different positions, potentially make him an edge rusher 2 years from now, opposed to off-the-ball linebacker now. That's what he brings to the table. So I think to your point, so far we can look at the future and say, well, what about if this happens or that happens? But for right now, they've looked unified. They've made the right moves, and it's something to get excited about the entire NFC East. But the Giants are going to be a team that there's not going to be planes flying over the stadium.
I've covered that. No, I've covered that in Florham Park. No.
You don't need that. Hey, and then, I mean, on the offensive side, you got Maui Noah. After they draft him, he's like, I will die for you. Talking about
I was watching you. I was like, Maui Noah, you're young. Just take a breath.
But that's what they got, right? That's the type of dogs.
Dogs. Come on, Lord. Dogs.
Dogs. All right. We'll see you tomorrow on NFL Live.
There's Robbie
Thanks
Anderson.
for spending the afternoon. What's that? I
Robbie
couldn't hear
Anderson.
Peter.
Trakes is a dog.
Looks great, Trakes.